celebrating the Lunar New Year, the Year of the Ox. So welcome. We're going to create a salad, a spinach salad. We're going to have, that'll be first. Then we will do a spaghetti marinara sauce. And then we'll set up the final piece, which is the dessert. So welcome back. If you haven't started or you're going to cook with us, just get your spinach going, your vegetables out so that we're ready to roll. I will start with the salad first. So that will be our first target of ingredients. So if we're going to start out, everybody ready? We're checking to make sure everybody's ready. So as you're getting ready, spinach has been around obviously a long time, but World War I, here's an interesting fact. World War I, they used to use spinach juice, put it in wine and give it to soldiers so that they would feel better and get, you know, the good things from spinach. The one question I have for you is, what is that cartoon character that used spinach as his energy source? Who can tell me that spinach person? Some of you may not have ever watched this cartoon. It's been around a long time. So I'm going to go ahead and start. We're going to get our apple diced up so that we can put it into the bowl. So again, just core your apple out as best as, and if you have a paring knife, it might be a little easier to do. Hopefully, if you peeled it a little earlier, you don't have to peel it. Again, that's an option for you. But if you're peeling it and you're using it, you want to use it up and cut it, get it going soon. Otherwise, it does turn brown. And it's just from the oxidation. So we're going to get it diced. Okay. So kind of like any of our chopping, just get your, make it safe, make your surface safe for you so that you're not at risk for getting cut. Put your fingers on top. I went ahead and did all the long slices first, and then we'll cut it in dices. Okay, so you could line up a good part, kind of like what we did with the onion. Saves just a bit of time. Okay, we're going to put that into our bowl. So you have that in a bowl. Okay. So diced apples. You have a bag of craisins or dried cranberries. So we're going to chop these up just a little bit more, but they're pretty, they're small. We're just going to give a quick rough chop to them. Hopefully they don't run away on your cutting board. Okay. And we'll add that to our apples. We're going to get our seasoning. So if your seasonings got mixed up or your bags got mixed up, so you should have, oh, I got to do one more. I got to do my onion. We're going to grab our onion really quick. So you have a H, your honey. That's going to go with this salad recipe. You have an L, that's your lemon juice. Thanks, Amber. And you're going to add that to our mix. And then the last one is you should see a C on one of your containers. That is the chili and the cinnamon. All right, so we're going to dice up our onion. Remember, take your skin off, get the tougher edges off, get down to the nice soft onion. Okay, you can take off the top. If you have this and you left the core on the bottom, remember you can take it and slice from the top down those long lines. Sorry, okay, so you kind of get it like a fan. And this is where you can do as small a dice as you'd like. Remember, onion can be powerful. So the smaller it gets, the more it will help cut back that pungency. And if you want to go even further and get it to a minced, it says finely chopped, you go down as far as you'd like. So you can add a little bit of extra. We do have some big pieces in there. All right, so we're going to mix that in with our apples, with our craisins. Get rid of that extra piece. Okay. Now is when you can add your honey. And that might take probably need a teaspoon. Maybe to scoop out that inside. We'll let it drain a few minutes. You can also use your lemon juice to kind of wash that container a bit. So I hope maybe I can even set it down in the bowl. I'll add my cinnamon and chili. Open up my lemon juice. I'll pour my lemon juice into the honey just to get it liquidy. We'll use our, how's our sound too? Anybody having any issues with sound? Sorry, I used the tip of my knife. So we're going to pour that in. That'll get rid of some of that. Okay, great. All right. So all your little containers, we're going to let this, we're going to mix it up and then we're going to let it sit. So basically we want all those flavors to come together. You want to get your cinnamon, your chili pepper so that it's nice and coated. Create that. Get your apples separate. So basically there is no dressing for this salad. As you let this sit, it allows for those apples to kind of weep a bit and the juices will start to come out. Plus you've got lemon juice in there. The lemon juice helps to also pull out some of that juice. Okay, so we're gonna mix it up and then we'll be able to let that sit aside and we're gonna have it ready for our spinach. But right now we'll go, you can set that aside and that will basically bring on all those flavors will combine. Nice mix of flavors. How are we doing on timing with me? Anybody need me to slow down a little bit? Let me know. Okay, we good? Jesse's going to be Jesse's in the background taking any questions, any comments. So feel free to jump up and say, help, stop, slow down. Either way. All right. Salads prepping. Your spinach will be ready to go. And then we're going to add that topping and toss it together. So your spinach should be, you know, you're looking at bite-sized pieces. So tear it up, or you could technically put it on the cutting board and cut through it, whatever your preference is. And then of course it's usually on the drier side so that those apples won't we don't have too much excess water. All right, now we're gonna get our marinara sauce going. So before we do, I can get your ingredients. So you have a container that has olive oil in that. So that is our first thing to put into your saucepan. So if you're ready for that. Quick question, trivia, sort of trivia. What are some what is spinach really high in? What are some of the things why do we tell people to eat spinach? What are a couple of vitamins that are really high in spinach? I'll let you think on that one or try and remember that. Okay. Now we're going to do our onion. So you should have a whole onion. You're going to peel it down to the point where you get the nice flesh. You shouldn't have too many, if you have brown spots or anything, you can pull that away, but your onion should be that thick, nice thick consistency to make it easier for yourselves. I can pull the roots off too and make it so they don't get into the cut onion. So I just pull those off. I'm going to keep the root end, I'm going to keep that intact. I'll cut off the top So you can cut off and get as far as you need to get rid of that top extra little bit. Okay. Vitamin E. Iron, it does have a decent amount of iron. The thing with spinach, because there is an oxalate in there as well, it doesn't absorb as much iron as what we'd like to. Vitamin E, there's some, but there's actually one that's even higher. One of the fat-soluble vitamins is even higher in there. Actually, two of the fat-soluble vitamins where we can consider it an actual good source of these two vitamins. So I gave you a hint with the two fat-solubles. So hopefully that'll give you a little bit of an edge there. But good guesses. All right, onion. If you were with us last time, I gave you a trick on cutting an onion, and I did it with the small red onion. So remember, if you cut with the lines of the grains of the onion, so going up, if you cut through, not quite all the way to the back, you can cut all the way through cutting down, but keep your back intact. So cut through that top down. Remember, keep your fingers safe and just make those lines. And at the end, you should be able to have, kind of looks like remember that bloomin' onion style. So you've got pieces that are we've got all these lines going. Then when you come back, you're going to cut across the top and you've got that perfect dice. So good source of folate, great source of vitamin K. There's one more fat-soluble vitamin that we definitely get from spinach. So it's also in, maybe I should give you a little more hints, also in carrots. You can find this fat-soluble vitamin in carrots. Yeah, there you go. Vitamin A. High five to the vitamin A group. So I half my onion. I'll go the other half. Spinach was actually first, kind of like main growth area was actually native to Persia. Persia is now known as Iran. So when people talk about spinach of Persia, it's because that's where it really took off initially. And now, of course, we have spinach everywhere. And it's a fairly easy crop to grow. Most of the time, late spring, early summer is your ideal growing season. I would say here in Hawaii, we probably have a longer growing season than the mainland would. And there are two cities on the mainland that are actually they consider themselves the spinach capitals of spinach capital of the world. There's two cities here in the United States. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of those, but I'll see if anybody has. If you think you know that one. Okay, so we have our onions cut up. We're gonna saute those in a minute, but I'll scoop this way, or let's switch cutting boards. So if you need to grab another cutting board, you can, or you can put this in your oil and just don't turn your oil on yet, because you really want to time all these sautés together. So now you're going to dice up our peppers. So your half pepper, you're going to pull out the seeds. You try and keep as much of your pepper intact. You could pull out the membrane if you'd like, and then we can wash the seeds out. I think last month we talked about the seeds. The seeds of a bell pepper are nice and mild, so you don't have to worry so much as if they get in there, if they're going to create that spiciness. They're very mild. With your whole one, if you want, you can push through the top. It'll break through that. It basically creates, it almost self-cores itself. So you can actually pull out the core, and we can use the edges. I hate to throw away good produce, so I use all as much as I can, but it actually will take out your core, so you can relieve the whole core at one time. And I'll wash that out. Of course, you can break it in half or cut it in half. All right. I think we got most of those out, and I'll use my edges. So you may not have a chance to look up those spinach capitals of the world. We'll move on from spinach after I catch that. So spinach capitals of the world are actually, there are two of them, and one of them is in Crystal City, Texas, and one of them is in Alma, Arkansas. So we have two cities in our US that claim as their spinach capitals of the world. All right. So let's dice our pepper, and you could cut the bottom if you'd like. Sometimes it's easy, it depends on how you want to dice, but you can start with strips. You get them in strips first. It's truly what your comfort level is on the dice. Then of course you can kind of put it together like we did with it stacks it back together like the onion was. So we can get these diced up. And again, it's truly your preference on how big your diced is. If you like that small dice, you can get as small and fine as you'd like. They will start to soften as you cook it, so it will allow for that nice tenderness of your peppers. I always tell people to dice it as small as you want, to the point where you want to get that mouthful of pepper or mouthful of onion. Your choice. Okay. So there's the half. I'll chop up some of my tops. How's everybody doing on the chopping? Those of you that are cooking with us. Hey, we saved you some time today. We got you garlic pre-chopped. Thanks to CTAHR for that. Save us that's some valuable time. You could take this and use red pepper. You can use the yellows. Use whatever color you'd like. Of course, we sent you home with green, but if you go to make this again, feel free to use any of the colors. Sometimes it's nice to have the green for just to have that splash of color. But again, you can use the reds, the orange, the yellows will also give it color. Okay. Of course, bell peppers are a nice consumption raw versus and cooked. We have a lot of chopping tonight, right? Any questions so far? I do want to, before I forget, there is a cabbage in your mix, and that is from Go Farms, sorry. And they provided that to you. And in the very back of your recipe book, you have a recipe to create. And I've got to go back and look at what it said. Okonomiyaki. So that's the cabbage recipe if you want. Otherwise, of course, you can create any kind of cabbage recipe. That was an extra plus for you. Okay. So again, we're going to keep chopping up those peppers. Take out a little bit of that membrane. Spices. Let's talk spices. So spices are obviously, we've talked in the last couple of times or at least last month, we definitely talked about the spices and the Indian spices that we used. But spices make a dish change. It changes the profile. And when we talk about salt, salt is one that definitely makes things change. It heightens flavor, and it also helps to reduce the bitterness. It'll also bring out the sweetness in food products. So people will sometimes even salt their fruits or their options to make them a little bit sweeter. So some people will salt grapefruit. Some people salt watermelon or cantaloupe. So any of them are totally increased. You're accentuating that flavor of the sweet and sour. All right. I will keep going on spices, but we're ready to start our saute process of our onions and our oil. So heat your oil up. And we, again, remember that temperature that we want to get to is when your oil is looking shimmery, or you could put a piece of onion in to see when it's ready to go. So we're going to get that nice and hot before we saute those onions. And you can actually, because I'm on a gas stove, you can actually see the shimmeringness of the onion. And if I drop, I can hear it. It's popping. I think we might have had some water in the bottom of our pan, but you should see it start to kind of sizzle around our onion. All right. Well, I can definitely hear it. I think we had water in the bottom. Whew. So of course, caution when using oil and having a dry pan. I'm going to keep that off for a second, turn my heat down. So we're going to get a wooden spoon, Amber, with bar. Whew. All right. I don't know if you can if you're able to hear that on the back of the recording, but that's it's popping quite a bit. So we're going to add our onions. And just be careful on that first drop in, because that's got to look, we've got some water on our onion. Okay, so we're going to put this in. Okay. And then you can stir that around. So we've got your olive oil in there and it's sauteing nicely. We're going to saute this for about 2 to 3 minutes. It just helps to bring those onions and make them a little more translucent. We like to see that translucency. I see an end that I want to get rid of. So I can pull that out, but we're going to have that nice, they're going to tenderize quite a bit. Okay. We let that saute a few minutes, and we are going to then have your garlic ready. It should be in a little 2-ounce garlic, and that is minced for you already, so it's ready to go. And you can purchase this at the grocery store too. You don't have to do fresh. A little bit of a difference in taste, but this is going to give you that nice, still a really nice garlic flavor. So we're going to keep those onions going. Got another end that I'll get rid of. So talking back on the spices, so salt is definitely one of those that really makes foods taste different, as well as plenty of others. And it doesn't have to be always salt. You can always have other options and other fresh herbs, fresh spices, or dried. Pepper is very common. And we also have different colors of pepper. This recipe actually uses white pepper. And why would I use white pepper over black pepper? That'll be a question for the group. Why would I use white pepper over black pepper? Yes. How long I've cooked oh, 2 years and 1 month and what's today? The 12th and 12 days. So 2 years, 1 month, 12 days. I started in the January 1st in 2019. I love it. It's been a lot of fun. This is the first cooking show demos that we've done. I do it with class all the time, but I don't get a chance to do it with all of you. So this has been, keep supporting this. We really enjoy doing it for you and having you with us cook. So keep sending those evaluations, keep making those positive comments, and that will keep us rolling far into the future. So loving it. Oh, good. So pepper, why white pepper versus black pepper? Definitely it has a little bit of different flavor. The white pepper is a little bit more mild compared to black. Why else would it make a difference? Why else would we think about white pepper? Because so now you're looking for your seasoning. I mean, this is coming up in our recipe. It should say SP, salt and pepper, and that's the white pepper. So the question still looms out there. Why do we use white pepper instead of black pepper? And then you also have one that's SM or S, salt, sugar. That's your sugar for marinara. So anybody have an idea yet on the pepper? Why white pepper? Again, this is sauteing really nicely. We're trying to make it so we don't brown our onions, but we still want to have them nice and tenderized. So your temperature of your stovetop will make that difference. But you just want them soft. Again, you don't want to crunch into your onions of a marinara sauce. And of course, if you have more time, you can always let things simmer a long time. Not only does it reduce and get concentrated in flavor, but it also softens up your vegetables that you're adding to it. It is milder, but there's one more thing that we think about when we use white pepper.
Appearance?
So white pepper is used a lot in macaroni and cheese. Maybe that gives you a hint why I would use white pepper instead of black. Exactly. So you don't see it, right? It disappears basically compared to black. Black pepper is going to show up. And as one of my students this last week said, it looks like ants in your recipe. So if you don't want to have that looking like ants in your recipe or dried ants, then you put in the white pepper. So our next step is to add the green peppers and the garlic. So actually I'm going to add my green peppers first. And the only reason I do that is, remember, we figured out last month how delicate garlic can be. So we don't want it to burn. So we'll add our peppers in, and then I'll add my garlic. Okay. So there is, I have to watch my handle. Okay, so you get your veggies together. We're going to add our garlic. And again, thank you to CTAHR for not having us dice and mince garlic. That's a nice treat. Turn my heat down just a little bit. You'll still hear that kind of that sizzle. We're trying to saute. So we're trying to get flavor combination as well as softening. So we're going to soften and let that kind of mix together for a few minutes. In the meantime, I think what we could do, actually, I can wait a few minutes to do our spaghetti. So also with spices and herbs and all the good things that we have, there's difference between spices and there's difference between herbs. Does anybody know what categorizes it as a spice versus what categorizes it as an herb? So we're using spices and herbs today, but why does it one category over the other? All right, we are, yeah, very good. Seeds, leaves, stems and leaves is your herbs, and spices are typically your roots, your bark, your flowers. seeds like somebody mentioned. Super. So now you could probably open up your tomatoes, especially if some of you have one that needs to be can opened. We can do that. So you have 2 tomato sauce and 1 diced tomato. So you can open both of those up and have them ready. This is still cooking nicely. So we're getting that it's tender, right? You can see how my onions have become nice translucent. They've gotten a little bit more, less solid in color. The peppers are going to start to soften up as well. And again, the longer you let this cook, the more those will cook down. So we'll let those peppers get cooking a little bit longer. If you used fresh herbs over dried herbs, you have to reduce the amount of dry. So if you have fresh, let's say we didn't provide you with parsley, or you wanted to use basil and it was dried, basically you just need to decrease it by about 1/2 up to 1/3, just for the fact that it can be more. Remember, we dry things, we increase the flavor, so we bring on the power of the flavor a little bit more than what we get in fresh. So if you're substituting in a recipe, just bring those levels down a bit so that you're not using quite as much. All right, so I think we've done a really good job. How's everybody doing? How's it going, Jesse? Oh, very good. Very good. Okay, now we're ready to put in our diced tomatoes. So you're going to pour everything in, the juice, everything. If you're worried about the size of a tomato, you could, of course, cut it in the mix, but really you can pour the whole thing in. And they'll break down over time with the heat, so you don't have to worry as much. We're not going to put the sauce in quite yet. So we're actually on step 3. We're going to heat these up. And we're going to get that nice and blended again in your pot. This makes a really good amount of sauce. So be ready to have extra sauce. If you have to freeze it, you could freeze it and then unthaw it later. But if you've got a good size group that's eating together, you definitely have a good amount of sauce. And I found a diced tomato with a little bit of an edge on it, so I'll cut that. Oops. Just had the top stem. All right. Let that go. Kelly, are you seeing the? Oh, if you started with the ground beef and sauteed and browned the ground beef first and then added your onions and your peppers, yes, cut back your oil. This recipe does have a high level of oil. When you look at it, you think, oh my gosh, this is really high. But again, once you put all these things together, and we're going to show you the end result, it comes together really well. It's got great flavor. But again, yes, you could cut the oil back. So if you're going to use any kind of ground meat, if you use like ground soy crumbles, I've done that as well. I actually make my marinara sauce first, because soy crumbles tend to be very dry, and they're not gonna lose fat like ground beef will. So you can actually do your marinara sauce and then add it to the kind of sauteed, toasted soy crumbles. So that's a great question. Cut your oil back if you use ground beef. And again, this is a nice marinara base for anything that you wanted to add to it. You could add, turkey. You could add anything that would be nice to add into here. Seafood probably would even taste good with it. It's just really a nice overall marinara base sauce. All right, so now we let that boil a little bit and we can add in our sauce. So you should have your 2 cans of sauce. Yes. Oh, yes. So this recipe, if anybody has been at CTAHR long enough, it was before I came, Chef Mark, so I want to say his last name correctly, Segoviano, this is his recipe. And I used it for the first semester I was here and loved it. So he provided me, I'm grateful for his what he left for me. And he provided some amazing recipes. So this was one of his recipes for his Italian meal that he used to create. So thanks to Chef Mark. Chef Mark actually passed away, I don't know what year, but it's probably been maybe 5 years ago. But he was the chef that was here and did the food production classes. So some of you actually might have had him. If you are a Henfest group, you might have had him back in the day. So here's your sauce going. Now we're going to put in the salt and pepper. And we're going to reduce this down to a simmer. So one of the things that you can tell on a simmer versus a boil is that it can be kind of stirred down. If it's boiling, it can't be stirred down. So I have a nice, you'll see some bubbles popping up, and that will be a nice simmer. You don't want to overcook it because it could scorch, but you also want to make sure it cooks and it starts flavor blending. So add your salt and pepper. Oops. And we're going to mix that in and we're going to let this simmer. Okay. So those flavors will all come together. Our peppers will soften a little bit more. Our tomatoes will begin to blend even better. And that will create a nice sauce. What you could do here is to put if you want to take a second and get some hot water going for your angel hair pasta, I will do that, and then we'll do our cake. So timing wise, the angel hair pasta takes about 4 minutes to cook. So if it's if you're challenged of time and worried about if you can get that off the heat and everything at the same time, you can leave that to later. I'll go ahead and do my water. And I also will add a little bit of salt and a little bit of olive oil. So why do we salt the water for pasta? I just did 2 pinches. Why do we salt water? Absolutely. Pasta is what? Flour, water, nothing else really. Maybe an egg, depending on your pasta, so that it's not very flavorful. So we salt the water to give it flavor. And we'll use the olive oil to help it so it doesn't stick as badly together. So I'll just put you can probably put in, if you're doing a whole pound, this will cook up a lot of pasta. You don't have to do the whole thing tonight if you don't want to. I put in maybe a tablespoon of olive oil, or any oil will be fine. Bring that up to a boil, and then we'll set our pasta cooking. Okay, we're breathing. Let's check our salad making. So we should have, the salad should be looking, it might look like it's dry, but when you actually put this together with your spinach, it's not a heavy kind of salad where you have heavy dressing. It created a little bit of a juice at the bottom, and we'll toss that. I'll let it sit until we're really close to done, and then those flavors are even combining more. Again, the more you let things sit together, the more flavors will blend. So we'll set that aside for now and be able to put that together with the spinach shortly. Then our last recipe is our molten chocolate cake. So if we think about chocolate, we have lots of varieties of chocolate, right? How many varieties of chocolate do we have? I'm going to transfer. Let's see. Oops. How many forms of chocolate do we have? What are we used to? Stir that in. And I will stir my sauce occasionally. Dark milk. White? What else? One more. Yeah, bitter or unsweetened. So that's generally your baking chocolate you'll hear about. So that's what we have set you up with for our recipe. So ramekins, you all got a really fancy, these are kind of fun. These are disposable ramekins. Sugar for your seasoning or for your sauce, we're gonna set it on side. So you have a disposable ramekin. Maybe some of you haven't heard of a ramekin before, but this would be a typical ceramic ramekin. These are oven safe, microwave safe. You can put lots of things in them. These are great for creme brulee, for French onion soup, and you burn the top, you know, with the cheese. So this is technically what you can use as for this molten cake, but you do have a disposable one for your use. So we are going to start with, our oven is heating. So that's one thing. If you're going to cook this tonight, our oven is heating, but we need to grease this. So what we can do is grease it. And here's a good trick. We pulled our egg out of the refrigerator thinking, oh shucks, we forgot to heat it up to room temperature. So here's a question. How do I turn this to room temperature in a quick, fast hurry? How do I make this room temperature? It's cold. How am I going to make my egg room temperature? I could hold it, but I'll be sitting and holding it for a while. How could I make this warm? See if anybody can come up. No, not yet. It's sitting on the side. If you added it, it's not going to be a problem. I will add it in a little bit after it sits for a bit. So did we come up with a thought of how to warm up my egg? Like yeah, get some warm water, put your egg in it, let it sit for a little bit. Of course, the hotter your water, the faster it will go, but you can definitely create a warm water bath for it. Okay, so that is for your egg. As you are getting that ready, we're creating basically a double boiler. Now, double boilers, when I was a kid, that was commonly used, but most of you probably have never seen a double boiler. But we create one using a bowl on top of a pan. So we can create a double boiler, basically. You put water at the bottom of your pan and you find a bowl. It could be a ceramic bowl. It doesn't have to be metal, either one. And you can stick it on top and that becomes a double boiler. Now, why? Go ahead. No, you should actually have it away from the water. And we don't want that water to boil. We want it to get hot, but we don't want it to boil. And so the purpose is that we're trying to get a melting without going too fast or getting it, making it too hot. So that it's basically a double boiler. So that is the technique that you can use if you don't have the actual pan that goes with the pan inside. So back in the day, those were very common, not so much today. You see them on the market, but not as much as what we can create this real easy. So we're going back to our buttering our pan. And I will you have a thing of butter and I will need there's going to be a larger piece of butter and there's a small one. So we actually have one that sat out for a little while. We used a piece of it earlier to do a sample. You can take your butter and you have way more than you need. So take your butter and if you use this is in the saran wrap that it's in, but you could also do it with a paper towel. So if you didn't have this saran wrap, you could use a paper towel. So we're basically going to scoot this around the edges of your ramekin. And we're trying to coat it. We don't have to have, again, you have excess butter. And because mine was nice and soft, it went in there pretty easy. The small, so you have a small little piece that is with your butter. And it's that small cut side. My pasta water's is hot. So your butter, when you open it up, has one little soft spot and then tablespoon. So you're going to use this for the cake, and this can be for your running it around the edges. And if you let it sit for a second, it'll soften up. Okay, since my pasta water's hot, I'll go ahead and I'll do half. So angel hair pasta, here's the nice thing about angel hair pasta, it's really thin. So it cooks really quickly. This will cook in 4 minutes, and we really wanna do an al dente style. Al dente means to the tooth, which means it gives, but it also gives a little bit of bite to it. We have to bite into it. So you don't want pasta to overcook. So you wanna always read, here's a nice way of learning how to cook pasta. Read the package and see how long it says to cook it. It'll usually give you directions. So this one talks about, I don't have my glasses on, but it's generally 4 minutes. This one talks about 3 minutes. So again, timing can make a difference with pasta. You don't want to overcook it because then it becomes starchy. You're just going to have a starchy paste. Okay, so get your pasta going. Another trick, make sure you give your pasta enough room to move around in your boiling water. What a lot of people tend to do is get small saucepans and try and cook a whole pound of pasta. And what happens if you're cooking pasta and you put so much in, it doesn't have room to move, it's just gonna go, you're boiling over and everything is gonna splash across. So if you can keep it moving and not cramped in your pot, you'll actually get a better cooking. So we're gonna leave it uncovered. I'll turn it down just a touch. If I was to cover that, same thing, it would go everywhere. So we're gonna keep it uncovered. And Kelly, if you wanna give us a tour of our sauce. So our red sauce is coming together nicely. It's a little high on the temperature, so I'll turn that down a little bit. Okay, so you can stir it. Oops. All right, pasta's cooking. Oh, I didn't do my time. 3-minute timer. All right, now we have our pan here. I gotta turn my water down. So if you look at my pan of water underneath, my double boiler process, I'm gonna turn my water down so it's not quite boiling, but it's nice and hot. Ooh, as my pan got hot. Remember, these guys get hot too. Put that on top. Now we are ready to put in that pot. We're gonna melt our butter and chocolate chips. So this is your larger piece of the butter. Okay, so the larger piece is your tablespoon. We're gonna put that into the top of that pan. You have chocolate chips. And these how do I know this is fresh? How do I know my chocolate's fresh? How would I know if it's old? There's something called bloom. And if temperature of chocolate fluctuates, the sugar or the fat comes out and it brings it to surface. So we try to keep it at a consistent temperature when it's stored. So we actually want to keep chocolate stored really at an optimal temperature of, I wrote it down on my sheet. We want to keep it temperature stored roughly at 60 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit so that we don't get that bloom. And that bloom isn't going to cause a problem. It's just, it's not pretty. It creates that white, powdery looking substance on the top of your chocolate. So you should be able to get this to the point where your butter is melting and your chocolate is melting. I have to be careful, my open flame here in my hot pad. Get that to melt. The other thing with melting chocolate, we're making it nice and soft and we're making it go slowly. There is a point where if you heat it up too hot, if you go above maybe 120, you don't want to get too much hotter than that, because what we have a result is it'll start to separate. The cocoa butter will actually separate from the chocolate and cause a not so nice product. It'll also possibly get grainy, or what we call seize. So it kind of freezes up, not seize candy, but seize inconsistency. So look at that nice melted chocolate. If you want to dip strawberries, that's perfect. We got it melted perfectly. If I wanted to dip strawberries or dip something in that, I could actually make my own dipping chocolate. It's a little bit different than just the butter side. So you do a 12-ounce portion of chocolate with a 2-ounce portion of shortening. That you can make your own dipping chocolate. So you could dip your 3 minutes. You could dip your strawberries in that. All right. We're going back up to our pasta real quick. Pour that out. Ooh, nice and hot. We'll let that drain. So now the question is, to drain or not to drain? What do you think? Question for you, to drain or not to drain? Or not to rinse, sorry, drain, but not rinse. Rinse or not rinse? So I think I heard a not rinse. Two, do not rinse. What happens if I rinse it? What's the purpose of rinsing it? So the purpose of rinsing it would be cool it down really quick, get it cold. You may be doing a pasta salad. If I rinse it though, remember pasta is enriched more than likely. If you rinse it, there goes your enriched, in addition to what you lost in your water. So if you rinse it, you might lose a little bit more of the enriched vitamins and minerals. Okay, next step of our cake, back up to here, is we're gonna put together the egg. So now we have a nice warm, look at that, that's nice and warm. We're ready to go. Again, if you're comfortable cracking an egg, you can crack it on the bowl. If you're doing it, you don't have anything in your bowl yet, might be a great way to start to get your egg in there first in case a shell goes. So in keeping away from my pasta, I'll crack it over here. Yes, my heat is off. And I still have it on top of that, that heat source. You could I should pull it off just because it's still hot below it. So we can take that to the side. And you might have to, if you left it on the heat, you might have gotten we got a little bit of grittiness. Trying to make it so you can see it. Otherwise, it should still be nice and smooth. Okay, so you can pull that off your heat source. Especially with an electric stove, pull it off. Good question. Okay, egg. I'm gonna mix this up a little bit to start with. I always like to mix my egg ahead of time. Then I'm gonna add, you should have SC and you should have F. So SC is sugar for your cake. Flour comes in a little bit. So you're gonna start out with your sugar. So we're gonna whisk those two together. Now, if you wanna make this fun, you could add bourbon or whiskey or whatever you wanna add to it. That's where you'd add it into here. A little bit of flavor punch. But right now we just have the egg and the sugar. And if you're using peanut butter, you could add peanut butter in here too. A tablespoon of peanut butter is an option. I realized I had missed telling all of you to do you should see CP, chocolate powder. So, or cake, chocolate powder probably? Cocoa powder, there we go. That we wanna actually, before we get finished with our egg mixture, take your ramekin, dump that in there. And then it's called dusting. So we can dust it inside and that will help that cake fall out a little easier. So move it around. Yes. Do you know if you can substitute gluten-free flour for the all-purpose? You sure can. Is it a one-to-one substitute? Yes. just sub it out and use anything that's gluten-free, definitely. Because here, yeah, no, that's a great question. And there is, with the cocoa powder, I'd have to check the back of the label, but there shouldn't be any gluten in cocoa powder. So now you should have your ramekin, and if there's a little bit of excess, you could push it. Oops. Well, you basically want to coat the exterior of your ramekin. Okay. So bring that around, and you can leave the extra cocoa powder, or you can dump it out. So now you should have a dusted ramekin. All right. Now we're going to put the chocolate into our egg mixture. And we're going to mix this up really nicely. So of course you want to try and get as much chocolate off your spatula. Okay, blend that up. Smells like chocolate. Smells like a really rich brownie. Okay, once I get that nicely incorporated, now it should come a consistency of nice and thin. It shouldn't be lumpy. Should come together really nicely. Then you're going to add your flour. So this one is the F. You're going to add your flour into that. Sprinkle it around. And because flour has gluten, we don't want to overbeat this. So we're just going to gently stir it in. Okay, gentle stir in. And then you are ready to pour it into your ramekin. Okay. It's similar to like if you've ever tried a flourless cake. This one is pretty close because it's very dense. Creates a really great dish. All right. Oops. I'm losing chocolate. All right. Now this is ready to go in and bake, and we're going to bake this for 7 minutes. If you want it more, if you want it drier, then you want to bake it a little bit longer, but we're baking it for about 7 minutes. Okay, we'll put that in the oven and then bake it. But while we are getting that ready, I know our time is getting really tight, so I'm going to show you some final results. We're going to mix our spinach, mix this together with our fruit. So we can actually, because the spinach has a drainer at the bottom, we're going to put this in and mix it. I think our bowl was, whoops, on the tight side. So we're going to mix it as best as we can without losing too much spinach. And we're going to toss this together. Yeah, I think a bigger bowl would be great so that we don't lose all those good spinach leaves. And we'll dump it together and mix it, get it blended. Perfect. Thanks, Amber. All right. This is a really nice light salad. Great combination of flavors. You'd think chili would be not so good in a salad. Makes a nice combination. Again, you could top this with candied pecans or walnuts or feta or anything that you want to add onto it. It can definitely be an additional fun piece to it. Okay, there's your salad. Let's go over to our sauce one more time, and I'll show you your sauce. So your sauce should be all nice and thick. We can add our sugar before we forget to do that. Somebody asks, why do I add sugar? Well, tomatoes are more acidic, so that helps to kind of take out that acidity of the tomatoes. That's why the sugar comes in. All right. And then to top it off with your chopped parsley. So your chopped parsley is nice to add. You're going to have a little baggie of parsley. You just want to chop that up, get it nice and diced up, chopped up, add it to your sauce, stir it in. You could leave a little bit for the leftover and then top it on your dish if you'd like, but you can add that in. Okay. And we're going to do is show you the final results of everything. And here we go. In the fridge. So actually, I know that we have a couple of special guests with us tonight that had birthdays either today or yesterday or upcoming. So we are going to celebrate you and have a little bit of birthday fun with you. So here is your molten cake. And I do want to highlight these are strawberry flowers from our volunteer in the CTAHR group, Jesse. So he created these beautiful strawberry flowers for you. And basically it was taking the top off and kind of taking some edges down into each of the strawberries. So I can add a little bit of whipped topping. Okay. You can put a little bit on the side for the berries. Make a nice add. And guess what? You have a lighter? Ooh, we have matches over there. Long ones or short ones? There you go. Well, that's coming. So we are going to show you our salad. So check that out. Oh my gosh, it's yummy. Beautiful. And final pasta as well. So if everybody is going to be ready, we are going to sing. Whew. Hopefully we won't set off any Ansel system in my kitchen here. That would be a lot of fun. So I think we have Sam, and I think Sharice's birthday is actually today. So we are going to celebrate you and sing happy birthday. Are we ready? All right. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Slow. Happy birthday, dear Sam and Sharice and anybody else in February. Happy birthday to you. All right. Yay. We'll blow them out. All right. Have a wonderful Valentine's Day. Have a great, we tend to do these on 3-day weekends. How is that? We get to recover. So have a wonderful 3-day weekend. We'll see you all next month. Take care. Evaluation. Don't forget to do the evaluation at the clip. It's in the chat for you and it should be ready to go. So don't forget to put that in there and we hope to hear from you and what your thoughts are. Thanks so much. Have a great weekend.